Okay, so, we're diving into the Mueller Report today,
Yeah.
and it's a big one.
Huge.
This report basically investigated like an attack on American democracy,
Absolutely.
right? We're talking about potential interference in a U.S. presidential election,
Hmm.
and not just any interference.
Right.
We're talking about Russia's potential involvement, so.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And the report lays it out there pretty meticulously.
Okay.
It talks about two main ways that Russia interfered in that 2016 election.
Okay.
Imagine like a two-pronged attack.
Okay.
One part was this massive social media campaign
Uh-huh.
to kind of like sway public opinion,
Yeah.
And then the other part was straight up hacking
Wow.
to steal sensitive information
Mm-hmm.
and then leak it.
Yeah, strategically leak it.
Yeah, for maximum impact.
So we're not just talking about if Russia meddled.
Right.
It's whether anybody on the Trump campaign was in on it.
Exactly. That was a huge part of the investigation.
And just so everybody listening is clear on this,
Yeah,
we're working with excerpts from the actual Mueller report itself,
that's right.
straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Straight from the source.
No hearsay, no interpretations, just the facts.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just the facts. So let's unpack this two-pronged attack.
Mhm.
First up, you've got this sophisticated social media operation.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not just talking about,
Right.
a few random tweets here and there.
Right.
This was a coordinated effort
Yes, very much so.
to manipulate voters.
Yeah, it was orchestrated by this organization
Okay.
called the Internet Research Agency.
Or the IRA.
The IRA.
Yeah, you might.
I've heard that.
Yeah, you've probably heard that.
Yeah.
It might sound kind of innocuous, but
Oh.
think of them as Russia's troll farm.
Okay.
They were strategically creating fake accounts and groups
Okay.
on all the popular platforms, Facebook, Twitter, you name it.
To spread
Their goal
pro-Trump,
was to spread pro-Trump
anti-Clinton.
and anti-Clinton messages,
Okay.
often disguised as like
Wow.
genuine posts from American citizens.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So who was funding all this?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Imagine this. Okay.
Okay.
A Kremlin-linked figure,
Uh-huh.
nicknamed Putin's chef,
Putin's chef.
was bankrolling this whole thing.
What?
A guy named Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Okay. Putin's chef.
Okay. Yeah, that alone tells you something about the level of
Ah.
coordination and intent behind this whole operation.
Putin's chef funding a social media campaign to influence a U.S. election.
Yeah. It's a lot to unpack.
That's a lot.
Uh,
Were there any concrete examples
Oh,
of how they actually went about doing it?
yeah, absolutely.
Like, what did this look like?
The report gives this really striking example.
Okay.
Remember that Twitter account at TNNGOP
Vaguely. Yeah.
that seemed to be run by Tennessee Republicans?
Yeah, it had a pretty big following, if I remember right.
Yeah, it did.
What about it?
Well, the Mueller report revealed that it was actually controlled by the IRA,
Oh.
pumping out pro-Trump content.
Wow.
And here's the real kicker.
Okay.
Some of their tweets were even retweeted by
Ooh, Trump.
campaign officials.
Get out.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just some
This is
fringe operation. This
No.
was mainstream.
It was infiltrating mainstream political discourse.
Wow. So you've got this sophisticated social media operation,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't end there.
It doesn't stop
The
them.
GRU, which is
No.
Russia's military intelligence agency.
Russia's military intelligence.
They took a more direct approach.
They did.
What-
Cyber espionage was their objective.
Okay, tell us about that.
Okay, so they targeted the Democratic National Committee,
Okay, the DNC.
the DNC, right?
Yeah.
Think of it as like the central hub for the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And they also targeted the DCCC,
Okay.
which works to elect Democrats to the House of Representatives.
Hmm.
Their goal was to steal emails and
So
documents,
sensitive information.
anything they could get their hands on.
And were they successful?
They were very successful.
Really?
Yeah, they targeted high-profile figures
Okay.
like John Podesta,
Podesta?
Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And this is where those leaked emails came from.
that's where those infamous leaked emails came from. You got it.
Wow.
But here's where the strategy comes in.
Okay.
They didn't just like dump all this information at once.
Okay.
They wanted to maximize the damage, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they strategically leaked these materials through
Okay.
platforms like WikiLeaks.
Mm-hmm.
They even created these cutouts
What
like,
does that mean?
like Gussifer 2.0
Gussifer 2.0.
and DC Leaks to make it seem like these were independent actors.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Creating as much chaos as possible.
Exactly.
Just throwing it all out there.
Creating chaos, disruption.
Yeah.
And of course, they went to great lengths to cover their tracks.
Right. Make it
Look like this was all coming from
Yeah.
like individual hackers or whistleblowers.
Right.
It was a sophisticated attempt to influence the election
Wow.
under this veil of anonymity.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's like a spy thriller.
it really is.
Except this is real life.
Right.
With real consequences.
Exactly. High stakes.
Yeah, the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
Did the Trump campaign actually work with Russia
Right.
to influence the election?
That's the question, isn't it?
That's the question, right? Did they or didn't they?
Yeah, and that's where things get even more complicated.
Okay.
The Mueller Report,
Yeah.
it documents like tons of contacts between people tied to the Trump campaign and people in Russia,
Okay.
but ultimately concluded that there wasn't enough evidence
Okay.
to like legally prove a criminal conspiracy.
Hold on. Break that down for me.
Okay.
What does that actually mean?
So basically, they couldn't definitively say, like beyond a reasonable doubt,
Right.
that there was a formal agreement
Okay.
between the Trump campaign and Russia
Okay.
to illegally influence the election.
Right.
That's a high bar to clear in the legal world.
Yeah, it's a high bar to clear, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So no smoking gun.
Right.
No signed confession.
Exactly.
But the report did find a lot of
It did.
questionable stuff. Right?
Questionable behavior, for
It's
sure.
like, why were there so many connections between the Trump campaign and all these Russian figures?
Exactly.
Like, what were they talking about?
It does make you wonder, right?
It does make you wonder. Yeah.
And it's important to remember that this investigation did lead to charges
That's right.
against several people connected to the Trump campaign.
Yeah, not for
Not for the conspiracy necessarily, but for other crimes.
right, for like lying,
Or exactly.
obstruction and all that.
Things that they uncovered during the investigation.
Like Michael Flynn,
Yes.
Trump's first national security advisor.
Exactly.
He pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI
That's right.
about his conversations with the Russian ambassador.
Yep, during the transition period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about Michael Cohen,
Oh, yeah, Michael Cohen, too.
Trump's former lawyer?
Former fixer, right? He got caught up in all of this as well.
Didn't he plead guilty
He
to
pleaded guilty to lying to Congress
about
about this proposed Trump Tower project in Moscow,
right.
which, by the way,
In Moscow.
was still on the table
Wow.
well into the 2016 campaign.
So even though they couldn't get them on this coordinated conspiracy charge,
Yeah.
the investigation showed this pattern
It did.
of people in Trump's orbit lying about Russia.
Exactly. A pattern of lying and cover-ups.
Yeah. And that alone
Right.
makes you wonder.
It raises some serious questions.
Yeah.
And, the report doesn't shy away from that.
Yeah.
Like, it really lays out some of those questions.
Like what?
For example,
Yeah.
one of the most talked about things is that June 2016 meeting.
At Trump Tower.
Trump Tower, yes.
With the Russian lawyer
Yeah.
who supposedly had dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you've got Donald Trump Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Jared Kushner,
Uh-huh.
Paul Manafort,
The big players.
all there,
Wow.
meeting with this Russian lawyer named Natalia Veselnitskaya,
Okay.
who, as you said, was offering up this dirt on Clinton.
I mean, just on its face,
Right.
that's shady.
It's shady, just the fact that it happened at all.
Okay. Yeah, why even?
So according to the report, Veselnitskaya didn't actually provide any information
Okay.
during the meeting.
At the meeting.
But the fact that they were even willing to meet
Right, just the willingness.
under those pretenses is significant.
Yeah.
It suggests this willingness to maybe accept help from a foreign power,
Right, which is,
which is a big no-no.
yeah, a big no-no.
Right.
And then you've got Paul Manafort,
Oh, yeah, Paul Manafort.
the campaign chairman.
The campaign manager.
Doesn't he have some ties to Russia already?
Oh, yeah. He had been working as like a political consultant
Oh.
in Ukraine for years,
Okay.
including for some pro-Russian figures.
Okay.
And the report shows that during the campaign,
Yeah.
he shared internal polling data
What?
and campaign strategy
No way.
with this guy, Konstantin Kilimnik,
Who's that?
who is a Russian associate of his with ties to intelligence.
So he's sharing internal campaign information
Yeah.
with someone tied to Russian intelligence.
Yeah, it's a big red flag,
That's a huge red flag.
for sure,
Wow.
especially given everything else that was going on.
Okay, so we've got this web of connections.
Yeah.
Shady dealings. But you said earlier this was just Volume 1
That's right.
of the Mueller Report.
There's a Volume 2.
What's in Volume 2?
Volume 2 is all about obstruction of justice.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
A whole other
A whole other can of worms
can of worms.
for another deep dive.
Yeah, another time, perhaps.
Right.
Just focusing on this volume, it's already
It's a lot.
incredibly complex.
It really is.
They really left no stone unturned.
They really didn't. They interviewed hundreds of witnesses,
Wow.
reviewed millions of documents.
Millions.
I mean, it's an incredibly thorough investigation.
Wow.
And really, they just lay out all the facts so that
Mhm.
readers can make up their own minds.
And that's what we're trying to do here, right?
Exactly.
Just present the information.
Give people the
We
information.
should let them form their own opinions.
That's right. Because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
an informed citizenry is the best defense we have
Right.
against threats to our democracy.
So where do we even go from here? We've uncovered this elaborate Russian operation to interfere with the U.S. presidential election.
Right.
We've seen how the Mueller investigation exposed all these questionable connections and potential cover-ups. It's a lot to process.
It really is. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most crucial takeaways from all of this. This idea that,
What's that?
that foreign powers, and Russia in particular,
Yeah.
are actively trying to interfere in our democratic processes.
And not just through, like backroom deals or espionage,
Right.
but by manipulating what we see and read online,
Exactly.
by exploiting these platforms that we use every single day.
Exactly. This is information warfare for the 21st century.
It's crazy.
And the Mueller report really brought that threat into sharp focus.
Yeah.
It's a wake-up call, and we can't just dismiss it.
So what can we actually do about it? How do we protect ourselves from this kind of interference in the future?
Well, awareness is a good first step, which is why deep dives like this are so important. The more we understand the tactics that were used, the methods of manipulation, the better equipped we are to spot them and resist them.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But it can't just be about individual awareness, right?
Right.
We need systemic changes too.
100%. I mean, social media companies need to do more.
Oh, okay.
They need to take more responsibility for what happens on their platforms.
Like what? Give me some examples.
They need to crack down on fake accounts, bots,
Okay.
be more transparent about how their algorithms work.
Okay.
They need to work harder to prevent this stuff from spreading.
And what about our election systems themselves?
Right.
The report mentioned attempts to access voting infrastructure.
That's right, and that's scary.
Yeah, that's unsettling.
You need to make sure our elections are secure, that our voting machines are tamper-proof, and we need to rethink how we approach online campaigning in this new age of misinformation.
It's like we're playing catch-up all the time.
Yeah, it's a constant game of catch-up, but it's also about getting back to basics.
Okay.
A free and independent press.
Yeah.
The need for critical thinking.
Yeah.
Media literacy.
Being able to, parse all this information.
Exactly. And above all, this constant vigilance that's required to protect our democratic institutions.
So it's a shared responsibility. It's not just on the government or these tech companies, but on each of us.
It's on all of us. Protecting the very fabric of our democracy requires active participation from all of us.
Well said. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into Volume 1 of the Mueller Report. We covered a lot of ground today, but we encourage you to go beyond this deep dive.
Read the report for yourself. Come to your own conclusions.
Because at the end of the day, an informed citizenry is the best defense against any threat.
Could not agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions.